Over in the pages of Marvel Comics' core Spider-Man series, it's staggering to see just how many individual comics were devoted to setting up this upcoming gang war storyline. I think one of the most important pieces of the story happened during the botched wedding of Janice Lincoln and Randy Robertson. The mercenary known as Shotgun interrupted the festivities and ended up shooting Janice's father, Tombstone. My name is Araco Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and take a look at the pages of Amazing Spider Man Gang War First Strike to see how some of the crime lords across New York City are responding to this power gap. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button over on this video. Prelude to Gang War. The supercrime landscape of New York has been on edge. This issue, they jump over that edge. What incites the war? Who hired Shotgun and took out Tombstone? What, if anything, can Spider Man do about it? Everything you need to know about Gang War officially kicks off next month is here. Amazing Spider Man Gang War First Strike is written over from Zebwells and Cody Ziglar, featuring art from Joey Vazquez and Julian Shaw. We have colors from Bryan Valenza, letters from VC's Joe Caramagna, and one of my favorite covers that we've gotten to see over from John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, and Marcio Menyz in quite some time here. Really like the way that Spider-Man is arranged, looking down over on some of the crime lords across New York City here. And I want to extend a big thank you to Adventures in Poor Taste and preview some of the unconventional art coming in over from Joey Vazquez and Julian Shaw. I was really taken over in the Amazing Spider-Man Gang War First Strike by just how different some of the artwork is from the regular artists over on the series like Ed McGuinness or John Romita Jr. Really thought that artists Joey Vazquez and Julian Shaw brought out a much more expressive line than readers are used to seeing that actually did a fantastic job characterizing some of the crime lords, especially within these opening scenes in the issue. I really found that this opening page setting up the gang war introduced so many fascinating story elements to the Amazing Spider-Man series. I've been waiting to see how Shang-Chi was going to be fleshed out in terms of some of the crime lords and villains over in the Marvel Universe. Really thought that Zebwells and Cody Ziglar already brought some interesting pathos over to that character in particular here. I also thought there were some fantastic moments between Hammerhead and this mysterious woman that he interacts with throughout the comic book issue. I was also really struck at how Janice Lincoln as the Beetle was introduced back into the narrative here too. After Janice's botched wedding, it feels like she has so much to be angry and bitter about within this series. And the way that Hammerhead and some of the other crime lords within New York City immediately test her allegiances, I think is incredibly cathartic and yet another really fantastic plot thread in this issue that does a phenomenal job characterizing Janice even further and establishing several plot threads in the Amazing Spider-Man comic book that are already being fleshed out. However, one aspect that I want to continue to give over to Zeb Wells as he continues to craft this really epic Spider-Man narrative is the utilization for Randy Robertson. I thought it was really engaging how Randy was working alongside Luke Cage within the background of the issue. I also thought the way that Randy is able to confront Janice again later on in the issue brings out so many dark elements and does a fantastic job tapping into the core of this Amazing Spider-Man series. Feels like Randy Robertson has been there almost from the start of this series here, so getting so much characterization for him at such a pivotal time in the main Amazing Spider-Man series is incredibly welcomed here. I also thought throughout the pages of Amazing Spider-Man Gang War First Strike that the character of Madame Mask was also served incredibly well. There's a really fantastic plot twist over with her, and the way that this comic book also references where she left off in a previous Spider-Man issue is really engaging here. Unfortunately, I didn't think the final page of the issue was quite as engaging. I think it really took a sort of left hook over in the story that didn't manage to be maybe as cohesive as Wells or Ziglar wanted it to. While I'm really excited at what the cliffhanger could potentially reveal and at the next issue of the main Spider Man series, I almost feel like Marvel was kind of forcing this plot point in order to really craft an ending that brought readers more closely over into the gang war. So at the end of the day, I find myself just a little bit conflicted over on Amazing Spider Man Gang War First Strike. I think that there are so many elements with the crime lords that are written incredibly well across this narrative. I also think that Randy Robertson and Janice Lincoln continue to be some of the most interesting characters in this run of the Amazing Spider Man series. I just want to see Zebwells continue to craft and implement more of the plot threads from his main Spider Man series. And I also want to see some of the relationships between Spider Man, Peter Parker, and some of these crime lords get fleshed out in a lot more detail and context. I'm very excited to see Tombstone and Janice Lincoln return over to this storyline, especially as they begin to interact with Peter Parker and Spider Man in the very near future. I really hope that in future issues of Gang War and in the main Spider Man series, Zebwells will also find some of those really interesting moments of humor that made the opening issues of this Amazing Spider Man series so much fun in the first place. I hope there's some really fantastic character interactions with Tombstone and Spider Man, who always have this just insane friendship amidst so much turmoil over in the main comic book title. I want to know from you, what were some of your first thoughts over on this Gang War storyline? Do you think the Amazing Spider Man is headed in the right direction? And do you have any thoughts about how some of these Gang Lord characters are going to interact with Spider Man as the Gang War officially starts to open up here? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for coming to check out our video review of Amazing Spider Man Gang War First Strike, and we'll be back in the near future to see where this series is headed next. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.